You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynne Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday, the 10th of December. Surge in young Muslims jailed. Planners reject mega mosque in East London. Prisoners are given a dreadlock holiday. John Puxty in Warwick. Almost half French feel poverty pinch. Belgium transitioning from democracy to Sharia. Belgium raises terror level ahead of anti-Islam film release. Soros remakes America into narco nation. Pakistan unsafe for Western charity workers. Thought for the day, nothing as good as offending everyone. And finally, secret of cat burglar unlocked. UK news. Surge in young Muslims jailed. The proportion of Muslim young offenders clogging up the country's jails has soared in the past year, new figures show. 1 in 5 of the 105,000 males in young offender institutions described themselves as Muslim in 2011-2012. This compares with 1 in 8 2 years before and 1 in 6 in 2010-2011. At one of Britain's most notorious youth jails, the figure is more than 1 in 3. Plans for new East London's mega mosque rejected by local council. Proposals for Britain's biggest mosque, located near the Olympic Stadium, were refused, planning approval amidst fierce local opposition. This eyesore would have been the largest Islamic centre in Britain and one of the many in Western Europe had plans been passed. It would have been 3 times the size of St Paul's Cathedral and had the capacity for nearly 10,000 worshippers. The plans were submitted by the Muslim group Tablighi Jamaat in 2007, but the councillors at Newham were advised by planning officials to reject it on grounds of being too large, poor in its planning and design, and would generate too much local traffic. Located in the shadow of the 2012 Olympic Park in Stratford, it was to include a prayer hall for almost 7,500 men and a separate facility for about 2,000 women. A World Date reporter comments, "There is a God and he lives in Newham and his name is not Allah." Prisoners are given dreadlock holiday. Hundreds of criminals are to be allowed off 4 days off prison work every year to celebrate Rastafarian festivals. Prison governors have also been issued with a list of holy days on which Rastafarian inmates must be excused their normal tasks. On some they'll be allowed to hold communal worship, and they may be provided with special food prepared by the prison kitchens. One nationalist spokesperson said, "I wasn't aware that Rasta was a bona fide religion. I always thought it a cult or a way of life. Still, it shouldn't be allowed to become a reason for even more leniency in our prisons towards our ethnic minorities, who are, of course, majorities in our prison system." Britain gives million in climate aid to tackle flatulent Colombian cows. Millions of pounds of British taxpayers' money have been spent on a scheme aimed at reducing the flatulence of Colombian cattle, the Mail on Sunday can reveal. A £15 million grant to ranchers and other organisations in the South American country was part of a £2.9 billion package of climate aid to developing countries, which critics called ludicrous. The initiative aimed to improve animal diets by cultivating trees and plants on their grazing lands, in doing so reducing the amount of methane escaping through belching and flatulence. Also included in this madness is a £31 million grant to Turkish wind farms and funding for talks with Kenyan rainmakers. Lib Dem supporter fined £300 after council election punch-up. Birmingham City magistrates court heard Nadim Azam, the son of Mohammed Azam, the Liberal Democrat candidate for Washwood Heath, lost his temper after a row with Labour supporter student Bilal Azif. In the ensuing fracas, Nadim punched 18-year-old Zainab Khan, sister of Mariam Khan, who went on to claim the Birmingham City Council seat for Labour in the May the 3rd ballot. Nadim denied the charge but was found guilty by District Judge Mark Jabbett. Passing sentence, he told Azam, "This was an unpleasant and violent incident. This is a serious case because of the threat from reducing a civilised election campaign to little more than a brawl, of further disorder from your actions. Judge Jabbit ordered Azam to pay a £300 fine, £100 compensation, £620 costs and a £15 victim surcharge. Multicultural mouthpiece journalist stands all over the British. Immigrant and occasional journalist Lord Karan Billy Moria of Cobra beer fame, in writing for The Observer, claims Britain's immigration cap isn't good for business. Our rigid immigration laws prevent some sectors of the marketplace from recruiting staff with the required skills. He also claims that today we are far more multicultural and that British Asians, who make up only 4% of the UK population, contribute more than 8% to the British economy. He is the same Lord who in 2007 fought hard for the government to allow foreign students to work for 2 years in the UK after completing their education. A World-to-Date writer says, thankfully he lost that battle. However, he still maintains that these foreign students still contribute over £8 billion a year to the UK economy. I guess these must be the illegal workers in the takeaway restaurants and the curry houses. Now I hand you over to John Puxty, who takes us to Warwick.
Warwick. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle tells us that Ethelfleda, daughter of King Alfred the Great, built a fortified house in Warwick in 914 AD. It was one of 10 such strong points constructed within Mercia to protect the area from attack by the Danes. This site was chosen because the old Roman road the Fosse Way crosses the River Avon at this spot. Warwick was the capital of a new Saxon administrative centre designed to strengthen central England. The name means house by the weir being on the River Avon and built to improve the river crossing. In 1050 AD, much of Warwick was burned to the ground by invading Danes. In 1068, William the Conqueror upgraded the Saxon fortifications and built a castle. 4 houses had to be pulled down to make way for the new structure, and a new town wall was built. During the Civil War, Warwick was a parliamentary town with a garrison of 350 men. The medieval town was destroyed in the Great Fire of 1694, which burnt out the town centre, leaving some medieval houses still standing at the edges of the town. The Church of St Mary was damaged, but the chancel and Beauchamp Chapel, built in 1464, survived. In 1852 the railway arrived in Warwick, but the Industrial Revolution had no effect on the town, which remained essentially rural. Warwick Racecourse lies to the west, and is unusual because it has a golf course built within the racetrack. J.R.R. Tolkien, the author of Lord of the Rings, was married here. He used Warwick as a model for Edoras, and the Norman castle for Minas Tirith. The plot of the book also followed the plot of the medieval romance, Guy of Warwick. Come and wander among the Tudor and Georgian houses here, and dream dreams of fantasy and adventure, as Tolkien did.
Thank you, John, for your informative input today. European news. Almost half of French feel poverty pinch. Survey. Nearly 1 in 2 French people consider themselves poor or fear they soon will be, said a survey published Thursday ahead of a national poverty conference that comes amid a period of prolonged economic stagnation. Belgium, transitioning from democracy to Sharia. Brussels has sworn in 2 municipal officials from a new Islamic party who want to implement Sharia law. A YouTube video shows one of the men, Redouane Arouche, taking the oath office in Brussels, followed by a protester pointing out Arouche's plans to turn Belgium into an Islamic state. The critic disrupted the ceremony, shouting that Arouche will undermine democracy with his plans to implement Islamic law. Arouche has admitted he's taking a gradual approach, saying it may take decades to enforce Sharia, but he said the process has now begun. The Gatestone Institute reports Arouche created a 40-point programme in the past, including teenage marriage and redesigning the Belgian judiciary to comply with Islam. Muslims now make up 1/4 of the population of Brussels. Belgium raises terror level ahead of anti-Islam film release. Belgium on Friday raised its terror threat level to the second highest ahead of the release of a new homemade film on the internet next week criticising the Prophet Muhammad. Interior Minister Joël Milquet said that a decision by a terror analysis and coordination unit was a simple preventative measure, taking the level of threat up from 2 to 3 out of a maximum of 4. The decision was taken ahead of the release, planned for December the 14th, of The Innocent Prophet, which an online trailer says is from the point of view of an ex-Muslim. France. Grave robbers caught stealing gold teeth. French police on Thursday detained 3 grave diggers in the latest in a series of arrests after dozens of bodies were dug up and gold teeth and jewellery stolen from them. Police detained the men as they worked at a cemetery in Pandering in the North Paris suburbs, where last month 4 other men, including another 3 grave diggers, were arrested. The first 2 arrests came on the night of November the 25th, when police found 10 gold teeth on one of the suspects, who were both wearing miners' headlamps and boots covered with fresh earth. A police source said the thieves located fresh graves during the day and then returned at night to rob them. French hostage families wait for government to act against Al-Qaeda. The families of 6 French hostages captured by terrorist organisation Al-Qaeda are in turmoil. One of the hostages' brothers has made a video to appeal to the terror organisation to release him. The families have said they need the French government to get to the negotiating table and sort the problem. 4 of the hostages were captured in Niger back in 2010 as they worked away from home for a nuclear power company, while the other 2 were kidnapped in 2011. The area in which the hostages are being held is a strong Sharia law province in a country reported to be the size of France itself. The civil war and imposition of Sharia law has forced around 40,000 people to flee Niger. World news. Soros remakes America into narco nation. As more states embrace legalization of marijuana, a pet cause of George Soros for decades, the British publication The Independent has published a groundbreaking series of articles by journalist Patrick Cockburn on how his son went insane smoking the drug. Cockburn and his son Henry, who was treated for psychosis and partially recovered, have written an article in which Patrick Cockburn is quoted as saying his son played Russian roulette with cannabis and lost. Henry, who smoked marijuana daily for 7 years and was in mental hospitals for about 8 years as a result, says, "When I reached a mental hospital, called St Martin's, I spent 3 hours walking around the lunch tables trying to listen to my shoes. I thought my shoes were talking to me." Patrick Cockburn spent months speaking to experts in the field and reports on the substantial evidence linking sustained marijuana use with mental illness. One expert, Sir William Patton, Professor of Pharmacology at Oxford University, reveals that even limited social use of cannabis could precipitate schizophrenia in people who previously had no psychological problems, and noted that smoking a single joint could induce schizophrenia-like symptoms such as hallucinations, paranoia and fragmented thought processes. 3/4 of consumers may take cannabis with no ill effect, but the remaining quarter, the genetically vulnerable, play Russian roulette, Cockburn said. Pakistan unsafe for Western charity workers. Pakistani experts have said that Bargita Almi, a Christian charity worker from Sweden who was shot in Lahore on Monday, was a victim of growing intolerance and anti-West sentiment in Pakistan. Bargita Almi, a 72-year-old Swedish charity worker, was returning from work on Monday when she was attacked by unknown gunmen in the eastern Pakistani city of Lahore. Doctors said Almi was hit in the chest and is still unconscious in hospital. "A bullet hit her in the chest. We have treated her and she is improving now," Ali Usman, a doctor at the hospital, told AFP. The latest reports, however, say that Almi is still in a critical condition. Thought for the day. Nothing is safe today. Well, today I'm feeling a pre-Christmas Kodak moment. As I look around and read the papers, namely the Mail, that daily dose of mixed metaphors that is the press today. But on going around the next big shopping centre near us in the boonies, I was surprised to see that the non-religious Christmas is alive and spreading like a large, incongruous amoeba throughout the land. There was a tree, true, but nothing hung on the sodding thing bore any resemblance to the Nativity, the Holy Child, or even the 3 Kings. Obviously there was no nativity scenes, and this year no lights hanging in the mall, just the ones for Santa's grotto. In short, everything is more acceptable to the Marxist left, the Liberals, and of course our visitors and migrants who are clearly settling in this country for the long haul. My better half remarked that the tree was crap, whereupon I pointed out that at least it beat the Belgium cube tree, which didn't even resemble a tree. So now it is official, the one great religious holiday in this country has now become on a par with Halloween. In fact, we welcome trick-or-treaters, but if the local church actually managed to bring out people singing Christmas carols, no doubt they would have the doors shut in their faces in many areas. In fact, there was no Salvation Army playing today either, a true sign of rolling over and being rolled on. In short, there was nothing to denote that Christmas is only a couple of weeks away, apart from the bulging food trolleys and the queues at Primark. So first offending words to the local councils, who after all accept our money from council tax and therefore should have some say in what goes on. Second offending words to the NHS and the press on this ridiculous phony phone call to King Edward VII Hospital about Kate's morning sickness. Call me mad or bad, but this is a result of initially employing nurses who do not speak or understand England or the English. Or come to that, the Australians, who for the most part descended from our criminal classes, so a phony call from a reporter is to be expected. Now if the nurse had been English or a variety of such, and had not moved from India to Bristol 9 years ago, she would have known one or both of 2 points. Firstly, the Queen does not make her own phone calls. And who was the hospital telephone operator who put this call through to the ward in the first place? From my sketchy knowledge of hospital calls, they have to come from the main switchboard to the ward concerned. Now I heard the recording early on in this saga and thought then, pity this nurse sounds non-English speaking. Of course I was right, and to be offensive yet again, if this poor soul committed suicide over a silly prank like that, what would happen if something really terrible occurred? It is all being blown out of proportion yet again. I mean, these two didn't even sound like the Queen and Prince P. So what is the switchboard thinking? Apparently they will all have nervous breakdowns or get the sack now, a joke which has really misfired for no reason. Offending number 3. Kate's morning sickness is of little interest to me. I suffered it all 3 times I was expecting, and the first time was the worst. Luckily, like Kate, I didn't have to work, but in my day the cure was the drug thalidomide for acute morning sickness, which you had to pay the doctor for, no NHS for the masses then. Luckily I took 1 dose and threw it up, so that was the end of that. But I cannot understand all the hype about this pregnancy, I'm afraid. In the Sunday Mail there's a huge spread on the making of a Monarch by Katie Nicholl and Charlotte Griffiths. Oh dear, what a lot of crap. For a start, an education would help these two. A monarch is a ruler or head of state existing. There is no indication that this newborn will ever rule, even if they do change the rules to accommodate a girl child. If this country goes along with a virtually Christ-free Christmas, what do you think will happen to our royalty? Apart from poor old Charles, who embraces virtually all religions, of course. These 2 full pages were devoted to a lot of hearsay and a lot of friends, who of course are not friends at all if they speak to the Mail. It was all planned and in the stars, and if you look at Team Kate, including the ghastly Middleton clan, I rest my case. I'm on a roll now, and offending words number 4. A Buckingham Palace Guardsman with no bearskin. Now apart from the fact I think all real bearskins should be nylon and not the real thing, there is one thing that should not be replaced, and this is the way our guards are dressed. I am sick and tired of the press and authorities bowing to pressure from these groups of strangers, no matter what their ethnicity or religious beliefs. The Sikhs already get away with murder with their bracelets, their turbans, their top-knots, knives and other items peculiar to the Sikh faith. Even Facebook has been employed to spread the word on his trauma. When I last looked at the men outside the palace, they were white. This is not a Sikh or Indian country yet. Men guarding our palace should be white and British, not brown and Sikh or Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist. We got chucked out of India, and the Sikhs, although they had a bad time with Muslims at partition, did not like the British at all, and in fact actively went over to the Japanese in Singapore lest we forget. Now they are over here enjoying all the benefits of this country, he should wear a bearskin over his turban. Let's face it, no one would see the turban under that great heap of fur. It is just a publicity stunt to show the world how wonderfully liberal we are. Well, I am not. Do the job and dress for the part, or guard someone else, or better still, go back to India. I'm getting very good at this offending bit. I think it is all about time we all did a bit more offending. It is free and it's fun. 5th offensive words. Poor old Liz Jones. I like her, but in yesterday's paper she had an article on nurses, of course because of the suicide. She came out with the old phrase, the Eastern European and African women who look after her mother were patient, funny and sweet. Well, good for her, but the Filipinos that were so-called cared for my mother were not, and like so much in life you do not know until it is too late. They were lazy and completely out of touch with us Brits and our culture. They killed with indifference, not ignorance. Whilst not all our so-called nurses and carers are bad, for the vast majority it is only a job which they do not have to go through a CRB check for, and are usually employed off the banana boat because of this and the fact they are cheap. Offending words number 6, double whammy. It's about Palestine or the Gaza Strip. I'm sick and tired of having the Palestinian mess rammed down my throat in the news and the papers. I'm not pro-Israel particularly, but I am pro-Jerusalem. During the First World War, when the Turks invaded Palestine, there were hardly any people there, only a few sheep herders. Between the wars, the so-called indigenous herders were offered this strip of land. They refused it. Now, of course, it has become a melting pot between two religions. However, and here goes, in my opinion, the only two religions that should be in the immediate vicinity and in Jerusalem are the Jews and the Christians. Mohammed and Islam is a latecomer to those lands, although these people are ethnically still Semitic. Mohammed didn't go to Jerusalem or be crucified there. Jesus was a Jew from the house of David and died there. The Palestinians are a strange offshoot of peoples who even the other followers of Islam do not want, or they would have helped them long ago, without resorting to terrorism and waiting for Israel to be formed. Next is Ireland, and the flag waving, or rather not waving, pandering to Ulster's gangsters. Well, typical of us Brits, we go from the sublime to the gore-blimey, and we have gone overboard both ways over the years. We used to treat the indigenous Irish disgracefully, which over the years made it into a war footing which led to the Troubles and the rise of Sinn Féin. Now, I have no time for people who blow up innocent civilians and cannot understand the way Gerry Adams is prancing around like a cat that has got the cream. But now the Brits are backing down in the north of the country, and that leaves a disenchanted British-Scottish minority on its own. In fact, it proves that it is better and less absolutely necessary for a precious few to stick to your own country. There'll be more trouble over there, and I'm sure, but will it get published in the Mail? There, I've offended everybody, but lo, another message. I know that many so-called nationalist splinter groups are forming all the time. In fact, more than carbuncles on a hog's back. But the one thing to remember in all this is that despite the faults of the British National Party, and they are legion, we are still the best known nationalist party to hate. And finally, cat burglar neighbourhood moggy with magnetic collar responsible for spate of missing keys. Neighbours in Stoke Newington, North East London, thought they'd mislaid their keys. But when even more started to be lost, they looked elsewhere for a reason, and thus discovered Milo Cat Burglar Extreme. It started when Milo was given a magnetic collar to avoid other cats coming in and eating his food. However, in Milo's joints around neighbours' houses, keys flew onto his collar and went through the door with him. It was only discovered when Kirsten Alexander, 27, spotted her pet coming through the cat flap with a set of someone else's keys dangling from her magnetic collar that the mystery was solved. Bless her, Milo is a genuine cat burglar. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynne Mozart, and I wish you all a very good night.